Well, welcome everybody. I hope you all can see my screen, discovering your game development superpower. I'll introduce myself here in a second, but for those who are joining, I really appreciate it. I got some exciting things to share. Hopefully, this will be helpful for you as you are trying to pursue your own game development goals, but also just your goals in general. I'm hoping to share a few things that, hopefully you'll like. So, we'll kind of hop right on in. So first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Bradston Henry. I am a senior advocate at Unity, and I'll explain what that is a little bit. But as a senior advocate, I focus on the education space. So I focus primarily on students, educators, and institutions. So at Unity, basically my job is to travel around the country, and that's North America, but also the world, to meet with student educators, institutions, and support them in any way that I can as a Unity employee, as a Unity developer, as somebody who loves Unity, has been using Unity for over a decade plus, I think about 12 years now. So what that looks like is I go to, let's say, Atlanta like I did last week and or last weekend. I was in Atlanta, so a few days ago, and helped out at a game jam. And I gave a keynote speech. I did office hours so people who are building games could like learn about Unity and what they could do with Unity. And then I just help people, with their coding problems, any problems they have within the engine. But also I'm helped educators with their curriculums and things like that. So also, I'll just show you this, my shirt. This is from when I went to Malaga, Spain just a month or two ago for the Global Game Jam. Super fun getting to meet the game devs in Spain and work with them and make games with them. It's just a fun time. So that's a part of my job, just traveling. And one thing, oops, I went a little bit too far. One thing I want to share is that everybody's story is different. How you get to game development is different. But I want to start with a story before I jump into game development superpowers. So, and this is something I want you all to keep in mind as we go through this whole process. So, when I was much younger, when I was a teenager, I was about 16, 17 years old, I got an opportunity to learn how to fly a plane. It was a part of a program hosted by the Organization of Black Airline Pilots, allowed young youths like myself to learn how to fly. I really wanted to fly a jet in the Air Force. That didn't end up happening because I have an eye that won't allow me to fly jets. But I learned how to fly a plane. That's the plane I flew as I was learning, the Diamond DA-40, kind of a glider, single engine prop uh, plane. But one of the cool things is that I got about 13, 14 hours of flight experience, and then I got to fly the plane by myself. But one of the things that happens when you're learning to fly a plane is that you have to learn how to do like emergency drills. And so one day, me and my professor or my instructor, we flew way out away from the airport to learn some drills. So essentially, I would cause the plane to get into a circumstance where the engine would shut off, and then I have to restart the engine as the plane is kind of dropping out of the sky, and then get it going. So there's this phrase that's used in flying that's called that goes such as this. It goes, "I'm in control." And essentially, what I am in control means is that at any moment, if there's two people flying a plane, so two people have their ability to fly, they both have their joysticks or their flight sticks. When a pilot says I'm in control, that means they are the only individual who's able to fly. And as we're flying out there doing these maneuvers, my professor, my instructor says I'm in control. And I go, oh, that's strange. I was in control the whole time we were flying. What's going on? I don't know. All I know is I see is he's looking around. He's confused, like looking out the cockpit window. He's looking at the propeller, looking at the wings on the back. And he turns to me and he simply says, "Hey, Bradson, I just want to let you know, I think the engine is having problems. I heard it when we first left, and as we've been practicing, I think the engine might go out, and we're going to probably need to crash land here in a moment. We're just going to crash land over here in this area with this forest is a little less more sparse, and I think we'll be all right." And he went back to flying. And I said, "Oh, thank you, Professor." And I said, "Wait, what did you just say?" And I was completely blown away. He said it so normally. But really, what I was thinking about in that moment was that I wasn't in control. He was in control. He said, "I'm in control." And one thing I want you to think about as we go through this development superpower is that you're in control. I want you to think about your life. If it's I don't know about y'all, but as I was growing up, it was my parents, my teachers, my friends, my guardian, my aunt, uncle, whoever, who often felt like they were in control of what I do and in my life and where I go. But when it goes to finding your superpowers and figuring out what you want to do with your development control, I want you to remember the phrase, I'm in control. Take control of the wheels of your life, of the propellers, or whatever you want to call it. So throughout this whole process, as we're talking, and I'm sharing a little bit of my insights, say, I'm in control. So who am I? I'm not gonna go through everything, but that's a broad spectrum of me right here. I'm married, got married a few years ago. I used to break dance. I participated in races and events, and I went to Game Developers Conference many times. I was just there 2 weeks ago. I've made many a game at game jams. I also am a practitioner of the Muay Thai kickboxing, but and also I have a YouTube channel where I've taught Unity and different topics on that YouTube channel and have had some good times on that. But I have a very diverse background. I've done a lot of different things. But the big thing is that I have a lot of different skills and things that I've touched and I'll be honest, most of my life I've been trying to figure out like what do I want to do with my career. And also I've always loved gaming. I always loved, this kind of this space, or at least the space that I knew of. But I never knew what I wanted to do. And I hope that this time we have together can kind of help you to start to think about what you can do. So, really cool thing. I just want to show you this really quick. Right before we sat down for this session, I just went ahead and I just looked on a general game development job board and I just tried to find all of the different roles that kind of exist in the industry right now. And if you look at this list, there's a ton of different opportunities, right? So, of course, we know the game designer, we know the programmer, the artist, the animator, but there's all kind of different jobs within this industry. And even my job is a testament to that. I mean, I work in games every day. I'm programmed and I make and I develop things, but a lot of my time is speaking and sharing my knowledge and getting to know people and connecting with people. Who knew that job existed in the game development industry? Well, there's a lot of opportunities, and I don't want you to limit yourself when you're thinking about what you can do in the gaming industry because all of the people here on this list, people who are in these type of roles, they could work in games day to day. I work alongside them. I see them at conferences. I see them at events. It's a great place to work. So just know that you're not limited to just game designer or just gameplay programmer or artist. There's so much you can do within the game development industry at large. So that should be exciting, something to think about. But first, before we get into everything, so I work at Unity, and I'm not going to assume that everybody knows what Unity is or what we do. So I'm going to do really, really briefly, like 2, 3 minutes, just explain to you what Unity is, just in case you're not familiar with it, and then we'll jump into the main meat of today. So, as I said, I work at Unity. Unity is a gaming, well, honestly, it's a real-time 3D engine, so it's bigger than gaming. Studios who use Unity make games, training tools, immersive experiences, films, applications, all kind of things. So when you're thinking about game development, it's bigger than just games. There's so much more, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. People get to bring their own code, their own art, and just make whatever they want. So that's really fun to be able to have that creativity. Tons of people use Unity, millions of people, as far as like using the editor and the engine. And then every day, 3.7 billion monthly downloads not every day, every month. People are downloading Unity made games and all over the world, across the spectrum, across a host of industries. And if you didn't know, actually car manufacturers use Unity, Toyota, Mazda, BMW, Audi, and a lot of other car companies use Unity for a host of different things. And we'll talk about that. But for those who are familiar with Unity as a game engine, here are some of the games that you might know that has been made in Unity: Among Us, Beat Saber, Hollow Knight, which I love, Pokemon Go, which everybody loves, and then Cuphead, what I love, but it hurts me when I play it. It's so hard. But there's a lot of really great games that have been made in Unity, and most likely, if you've played a mobile game in the last 24 hours, you're likely to have played some type of Unity game because a lot of mobile games are using Unity. Outside of that, we of course we do gaming, but we also do films, education and training. So helping people to, learn things for the job, kind of that virtual training. Automotive, as I mentioned earlier, so visualizations and things to help you like think through what the car is going to look like, and also the dashboards like in cars actually use Unity and for different companies, and architecture, engineering, construction. So there's a host of 3D worlds and realms that use Unity, and there's other realms like live entertainment, think like Disney and things like that, that use like Unity for either prepping things or doing really cool things in live real time with 3D. All right, so enough about Unity. Let's talk about discovering your game dev superpower. Here's a secret. Your game dev superpower is equal to your superpower. What do I mean by that? Your superpower is essentially the thing that makes you uniquely you, that is going to allow you to be successful in your career, in your life, and whatever you'd like to do from now and forward. So, as we go through this game dev superpower kind of discovering and the ways that you can do it, like remember that all of these things are applicable outside of game dev. So, I don't know about you, but like as I've been trying to figure out my career throughout my life, I've been like, oh, do I want to do game dev? Do I want to do engineering? Do I want to be a hip hop dancer? Whatever those things are. But your superpower follows you wherever you go. So I'm not specifically trying to say, okay, this is how, this is what everybody does to get in the game industry because there is no one thing that everybody does. If you spend any time talking to people who work within game development, everybody's story is different, but I can tell you that there is traits and qualities and things that they have focused on that I find as I meet people who work alongside me throughout the industry. So let's get started. So first, I wanted to show you a practice that I've gotten into. And if you'd like to kind of follow along with me as we're going through this, I encourage you to like pull out a pen and paper, your phone, what have you, something just to write down. I mean, maybe if you have, you know, great memory, you could do this, but think about it as the thing that allows you to something that you can help to think and remember what you're doing. So what I did a while back is I wrote down everything that I thought I was good at, and I tried to find this like the things that kind of make sense for me to do in my career, right? I actually saved this document, and my handwriting is beautiful. I know it's beautiful. I'm kidding. But you can see that I have all kind of things. Things that either people have told me I'm very good at, things that I've discovered I'm good at, things that have become my superpower that I've learned and grown in. But what I tried to do is kind of make this mental map, and this has really helped me to really focus in on what I want to pursue in my career, especially when I started really thinking about getting into game development as a full-time career. So I encourage you to take time and like write down a lot of stuff that you're thinking about today down, so that helps you to kind of figure out what you want to do in your career. And if you were to look at this, some of the things that I have written down here are things that I do today. For example, mentoring, gaming commentary, game jam hosting, game jam interviews, event planning commentary, like all these things I do within my job. And who knew that this would kind of help direct me? So let's continue. All right. So my first thing that I encourage you to do when you're trying to figure out your game development superpower is pursue your passion. So I think this is something you all are probably aware of, and people have probably said it to you over time and in your life. But really, if you really want to find your place within any career or anything, pursue what you love, the thing that drives you, the thing that when you wake up in the morning, you're most excited about, and pursue that with as much of your heart as you possibly can. So if you look at this picture here, on the left side is me, little Bradston, at age 4 when he got his Bernstein Bears blanket. So I was a big fan of Bernstein Bears. I had a whole bunch of books when I was a kid. I have 2 older siblings who, they were there at the time. Clearly, you can see them in the picture. But I got this blanket, and you know what I was like? I was like, no, it's not enough for me to have this blanket. I have my uncle used to call me King Brad when I was growing up. So I'm King Brad. I need to get my blanket out. We need to make a story behind this. We need to let people know what I'm doing and why it matters. I went, I don't even know what I was doing with the X, but for whatever reason, I was pumped about it. And as you can see, my siblings are like, we'll hold it up for you. But I was like, yeah, I felt so cool. And now if you look a little bit into who I am now today, that's the same Bradston, the same King Brad, as my uncle called me, who goes out there and lives out his passion. So what are my passions? So my passions are one, people. Ever since I was a kid, I'm an introvert. You might not believe it. I'm an introvert. I like to hang out in my room by myself, play video games, read books, and just keep it simple. But I do love people. I love like who are people? What makes them tick? What makes them go left and right? And I've always, since a kid, I've always been like that. And I've always wanted to kind of like get to know people and like make them like happy and like do things that make them laugh. And like people have been like a thing that I've always been focused on in my life. And I don't know, ever since a kid, I kind of pursued that in the weirdest way ever. I just try to get to know as many human beings as possible. And I would just like pursue that and pursue that. And people would think I was weird, just like I'd be somewhere and I'd be like, hey, tell me about what you do. And like, what is that? And why do you do that? Like, but it's the people that always was my passion. The next thing that's always been my passion is stories. So stories being books, movies, games, fairy tales. And to this day, actually, right now, me and my friend, we have a podcast. You can't really see it. It's on my phone. It's called the Mantis Podcast, where we talk about stories. And stories have always been something that's been a passion of mine. I've written stories, read stories, talked about stories, argued about stories, and it's been read books about how stories are made, and it's always been something that's a passion to mine of mine. And then finally, and of course we're all here for the same reason, gaming has always been a passion of mine since the first day when I picked up Mission Impossible on the Nintendo Entertainment System at the ripe age of 4, the same Bradston you see in this picture. I've always loved games, and so much so like when I finally had the opportunity to like get anything about games, I would get every magazine. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a Grand Theft Auto 5 poster for cover for the Game Informer magazine. And I have like I don't know how many of these magazines, and I've read them cover to cover, like every word, every interview, every game that I never will be able to play because I only had one system at the time. Like that was my passion. And I never really understood what I could do with these things. But as I've pursued them, as I've went after them, like full out people, stories, and games, it's led me to where I am now, where I go around and I meet people and I just connect with them and I talk to them and I hear their story. And it's really about them. Like and then I hear their stories and I love where they come from, what they did, why this matters to them, why this doesn't matter to them. And then all we do is talk about games, game development, the games we love to play, why games matter to us. Pursue your passions and it'll bring you to where you want to be. You know, take a moment and think, what are the things that are that you're most passionate about? Write them down, like seriously, because if you don't write them down, sometimes you just, oh, this is something I like. No, what is like the thing that you really, really are passionate about and that you love? And you'll find that there's a space, not only in game development, but in many other places that are it's for you. If you love art, if you love everything about artistry and visuals and things like that, well, you know, dig into that. Learn more about artistry, learn how to draw, learn everything you can about all the different artists you can. And then, you know, if you love gaming, same, learn everything about gaming. Oops, I'm an artist in game, a game artist. Kind of makes sense. You're passionate about it. So I encourage you to pursue your passion. It'll help you to find your superpower, which is deep, is already in you. You just have to kind of tap into it. Okay. All right, be who you are, be you. So this is actually not this is a quote from an artist that I love his music and I love his personality. I love his passion. You might actually know him if you watched the Super Bowl this year. His name is John Baptiste. He did the national anthem. He sang the national anthem, but he always talks about this idea of like being who you are and being you. I know this is kind of cheesy. I feel like every person has said this ever in every context of anything, but honestly, like this is the if you want a cheat code on how you can like stand out in the game dev industry, how you can find a place that nobody can compete with you in, be who you are. Ever since I was a kid, I was that same goofy little kid you saw throwing up the X with the Bernstein Bears. But the thing was, I love games. I was a nerd, but I also liked uh, sports and I loved music and I loved entertaining people and doing all these things. But I always felt like I had to kind of hide a part of me. Like I had to like be a little bit scary because I didn't want to like, I wanted to be cool, but I never was going to be cool just because of the nature of who I was. But I wanted to try everything to be like hide who I really was. And it was when I started to get a little bit older and have some mentors, which I'll talk about later, that I started realizing that to really figure out who you are and to really figure out what makes you tick and what makes you great, your superpower, you have to be you. So here are two pictures of me. One is me breakdancing. So I used to breakdance for many, many years. I used to be a instructor. I had a crew that I was the captain of, I guess you could say, at my university. I went to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and I used to go to battles and dance, and actually was on a pilot for a TV show, and then I was supposed to be on America's Got Talent, but me and my crew turned it down because we thought we'd embarrass ourselves. But that's just who I am. Like I'm just that guy. Like the same guy you're seeing right now is the same guy if you met me at the supermarket, if you met me at a game jam, if you met me in an interview, like this is me. And I found that when I've tapped into who I am, it's allowed me to figure out like what really makes me tick and what makes me the best me that I can be. I've realized, yes, my passions are really important. I love gaming. I love meeting people, stories, all this stuff. But then, like, when getting to the point where I'm starting to express myself, right? Some of you are not going to be like me. I'm a very expressive, energetic kind of guy, right? But some people are more sullen, solemn and chill, and like that's the energy too that people love. And for whatever reason, when you start to tap into who you are, you start to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are. You get to realize what really drives you forward. How can you accentuate those personality traits and quirks that make you stand out in a crowded field because a lot of people want to be game devs, but the difference is very small when it comes down to competing for roles. And really figure out who you are. So I encourage you to be who you are, be you. I know this is a very like soft, like there's no way to like really quantify it, but I encourage you to sit down, take a moment and think like, what makes me me? Like, who am I? I know these things change as you get older and you grow, and you're going to continue to be asking yourself this question. But when it comes to game development, that's the difference maker between like somebody who's just an average game developer, if it's an animator, a programmer, or whatever, and somebody who stands out in their field. Think of Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima is himself. If anybody knows who Hideo Kojima is, he made all of the Metal Gear Solid, franchise, one of the most world-renowned game designers. Um, if he has stood out because of who he is, fundamentally, there is nobody else like Hideo Kojima. That could be Miyamoto, that could be Todd Howard, whoever in the game industry. Those people are those people. So find who you are and be you. And as you can see, I'm a goofy guy. You can see me with my Adventure Time hat, DJing at an event when that's a whole story behind that. But like, that's me. That's me. That guy right there. That's me. So I want to talk about another point that I think is something that took me a long time to realize was hindering me from kind of finding my place in the game dev industry, but as well as just kind of like fundamentally allowing me to accelerate my growth in general. So, leaning into your gifts and understanding your weaknesses. So I'm going to share a story. Oops, share a story about me and a friend that I have who name's Kyle Smith. Me and him have been working together for a long time. We met each other at when I was a programmer at IBM and he was a visual designer at IBM. And we both were working on games separately. I was working doing game development within IBM and he was not at the time, but we kind of met each other and we realized we both love making games. And so as I was doing game development, me and him were working on games separately outside of that. Um, One thing that I've always wanted to be in my life, and I'll be very honest, this is an honest admission. I've always wanted to be an artist. I've always wanted to be able to draw. I wanted, when as a kid, I would take every tutorial I could find online for anime character drawings. How do I draw still figures and plants and everything? But I was terrible, no matter how hard I tried. I mean, I'll be honest, I tried really hard, but I was really bad at it. And I've realized over time that I also, some of you might know what I'm talking about. I don't have the ability to see images in my brain. I don't see like if somebody says, well, imagine an apple. I don't see an apple. I just think of the attributes of it. But anywho, that makes it hard to be an artist. And but I always tried to be an artist, and everything that I ever made was terrible, But you know what I was really good at? I was very good with technical things. Ever since I was a kid, if you put me in front of a computer or some kind of technical thing, a tic-tac-toe little game that you play as a kid, I could figure it out. I could even take it apart and just do whatever I wanted with it. And not noticing as a kid, that was kind of my gift. Anytime something broke in my house that was technical, my parents would call me to do it. I have older siblings, and they would still call me to do it. I don't know how many times I've broken and fixed my computer at my house growing up, but I was always technically inclined. But the reason I'm bringing up the story between me and Kyle is that as I was doing game development, there's times where I would try to lean into my artist skill set, which I didn't have. And it wasn't until I met Kyle and I found out that Kyle's gifts was visual in artists and his weaknesses was technical that I realized when I just leaned into what I was good at, when I really focused on the thing that really made me tick, going back to my passions, going back to who I am, I started to really find a lot of progress and success within my career because I could focus on, for example, this game you're seeing on the left is a game that me and him made in our free time as we were after we get off work. It's called Amber. We published it on Itch, and we never like planned to do anything big other than just to make a game. And I made all the systems. I made the AI. I made how things move, how the characters fight, the leveling system, a lot of the mechanics in the game. Like I really dug in, and I made some really really cool things. And I'm to this day, I made that was 2018. Like I'm super duper proud of. And because Kyle was able just to focus on his strength and lean into his gifts of artistry, he came up with a new art style. He tried something new. We had a lot of fun making a lot of goofy things that we probably wouldn't have done normally because we always are trying to do both. So I encourage you as you pursue your game development career to focus on what you really are good at, like that gift, that thing that really makes you tick, that makes you stand out. And yes, there are things that, I encourage you to like, shore up your weaknesses. So try to be better, but don't destroy yourself trying to be the best thing that you're not. So if you're an artist, be an artist. If you're a designer, be a designer. If you're a musician, be a musician. If you're a programmer, a developer, technical, be that. If you're a planner, somebody who's really good at planning, do that. And yes, learn the other crafts, learn the other things that people do, but lean into what you do. If you looked at that list of things that I shared of jobs, they're always going to be very like narrow. Like you don't see a lot of people who are like a developer and an artist and a sound designer at the same time and they do everything. That just doesn't happen. I mean, there's very few games that exist out there in the world that are made by one person. What? There's Undertale, there's Stardew Valley, and a few others. But even those nowadays have teams that support them and build them. So just know that if you lean into your gifts, you can find a little bit more about yourself and figure out your superpower. So don't be afraid to lean into your gifts and figure out who you are. All right. I'm just going to say this straight out. I'm going to keep this point really short. Hard work is key. I don't really, it doesn't really matter what you're pursuing, what your passions are, who you are, what your gifts are, what your weaknesses are. You have to be hardworking, particularly if you're trying to find a place in the game development industry. It is a very, very, it's a very like open industry. There's people always welcoming and they always want to like bring you in, but it's competitive. There's only so many games that are made every year. There's only so much time for people to play games. So there's only so many opportunities at any given time. And how you really stand out is the level of effort and work that you do. I'm showing a picture of me running because when I was in high school, I decided to go out for the track team because I was too skinny and my head was too big to be a football player. And so I decided to run for track, but I was terrible. I was not very good. I had athleticism, but I just was kind of, I guess I never had tried very hard to be good at anything. And from my sophomore year to my senior year, I worked really, really hard to be the best runner I could possibly be. I had some ceilings, of course, on like natural talent. And I became the second fastest person on my team. And the only reason why I wasn't the fastest is because the fastest person on my team was somebody who has now gone on to the NFL, who as a freshman in high school was the fastest person in the state. And there's no chance of me beating them a day in my life, except for one time when I beat them and they never let me live that down because they wouldn't let me beat them again. But in order for me to become the runner that I end up becoming, the athlete that I end up becoming, I had to work hard. And now my job is a lot of presentations, speaking, talking, meeting people all over the world, trying to get to know them and engaging with them. And it's kind of my natural talent to speak. I mean, I don't know how well I'm doing right now, but genuinely, if you were to give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes on any topic and you were like, hey, present on this for 15 minutes, I could do it with nothing. Like that's something, and it's not a brag or a taunt, like, oh, I'm so cool, but that's just my gift. But I'll be very honest with you. I spent a lot of time trying to refine and hone my gift. And to be very honest, the role that I'm in right now was a very competitive role. And it was like, you know what they say, a race of inches. a race of inches on who's going to get this role, who's going to get an opportunity to do what I do. And I think the difference was how hard I work to really differentiate myself, to really as best of a speaker I can be best of a presenter as I can be, somebody who's very good at their craft, their technical craft. And I've worked really hard. And even though I can do these speeches at universities and even now, I spend a lot of time preparing, practicing, and being good at what I do. And I feel that my superpowers have become like, there's a joke that Superman is super invincible. He's not just invincible, he's super invincible. And I think that if you want to really be super X, super Y, you have to work hard. And especially in the game development industry, there's a lot of opportunities out there, but really they're honestly looking for the best of the best. And if you don't put your all in, if you don't really work hard and put your effort in, it's going to be hard to really break through. All right, so I'm going to share this really quickly. Know that you shouldn't limit yourself. Game dev is bigger than games. I'm playing this video here, but this is me when I was working a non-game development job. I was working kind of in a similar role that I do now, but not in the game development industry. And what I did is I kind of like finessed my way into this situation where I was making games, even though my role wasn't about games, because a lot of game development it intersects with so many different industries. What I was doing was showing how to deploy a server to Red Hat OpenShift using particular technology stack, and it's all this technical stuff, right? But really, honestly, at the end of the day, what I showed and what I put together was a multiplayer game, multiplayer art painting game. So that's a picture of my dad that was made in real time using where you could paint the ground with these robots and using a multiplayer server. But I mean, you can find that there's so many places where you can use your skill sets beyond just simply game dev. Like I shared earlier, you can do it. There's construction and automotive and films and health. One big thing that's really happening right now, if you're not aware, is what's called XR, XR, which is extended reality. That is mixed reality, augmented reality, virtual reality. So think headsets, the Oculus. I have an Oculus, a Quest sitting right there, like these kind of things. Well, what are those being used for? Everybody thinks games when you think that. But honestly, one of the biggest industries that is using virtual reality right now, augmented reality, mixed reality, is healthcare, on automotive, and like industry. So think manufacturing and things like that. So there are people who are game developers who use Unity Engine for making games, who also work in these really cool companies like BMW, or at some doing health care things or mental health. Like imagine creating spaces where two individuals can be together in virtual reality, and have deep therapeutic conversations using a game engine. What would be considered a game engine? Game dev is so much bigger than games, so don't limit yourself. There might be a time where it's hard to get into the exact job or career that you want, but continue to pursue your passion and continue to find ways to use your skill sets. That is in Unity, if it's Unreal, Godot, what have you, to take you to the next level in your career. One thing that always stood out for me, no matter where I was, is that everybody knew I was the game development guy. Even when I wasn't working in game development, even when I was working a normal job, doing whatever I wanted to do, everybody knew I was a game development guy. And I always found a way, if it was either gamification, finding ways to gamify learning, if it was, like I said, this thing where I was doing a whole different set of technology, but I managed to dig in games, or if it was just helping creating some type of experience for people in a way that allowed them to be more immersive and connect with it, I was using games. And now I work at Unity because I've been using Unity for a very, very long time. So game dev is bigger than games. Don't limit yourself. Even if you don't get that job at Ubisoft or Epic or wherever, when you first are pursuing your career, never stop building games and keep working in the tools that make them. All right, finally, I just want to say this because this is really, really important. If you really want to, here's a cheat code to become finding your superpower and finding yourself in the game development career that you want, is to find mentors who can invest in you and help you. So these are two pictures of my mentors. One is an actual picture, and one is an AI picture because my mentor he's very technology aware. But both of these individuals are people who I've met and connected with, who I started a mentor relationship with. And what I mean is that it was somebody who I looked up to, who I admired, who has done something in their career that I wanted to accomplish, and I approached them, or they even saw something in me, and they were like, "Hey, do you mind if we kind of meet every once in a while, and you can and do you mind if I meet with you every once in a while and ask you questions about career? How do I grow? How do I become better? So on and so forth." And those relationships have been absolutely pivotal in me finding my superpower and finding a way into the industry in the way that I wanted. For example, Donald or Don, he really taught me about advocating for myself and pursuing the goals that I want and not being afraid to speak up on it. Robert taught me, Robert, who is the AI picture, he showed me how to just believe in myself, honestly, to know that I had the game development skills, because he was the first person who really gave me a game development opportunity. And when I talked to him and I felt like I wasn't good enough, and he was like, "No, you're good enough. You can do it. If you focus on these things, if you focus on your technical skills, if you focus on building your communication skills." And he helped walk me through. So for all of you out there right now, I want you to think for a moment to think, is there any person who you think could mentor you? If you don't, like somebody who you look up to, somebody who, and the big thing I want to note here is neither of these individuals ever worked in the same direct field that I worked in. So none of them were programmers, gameplay programmers, Unity engine engineers. Like they never worked in that space, but they were all professionals who worked really hard in their space and stood out in the way. And I admired them. I looked up to them, and I was able to ask them questions. So it doesn't have to be somebody who does what you want, exactly what you want to do in your career. It just needs to be somebody who you look up to, admire, and who can pour wisdom into you. If you want a cheat code to finding your superpower and getting to that place that you want in your career, find a mentor. Is there somebody in your community, in your life, anything, who you can ask questions and get to know, who can show you basically shortcuts and cheat codes, to get you to where you want in your career? If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be at Unity right now. Absolutely not. And so I encourage you to seek that out. If you don't know where a mentor is, ask somebody about, hey, how can I find a mentor? Ask your guardian, your parents, your friends, somebody who you know who might have some knowledge in this space. Say, hey, I'd love to find a mentor. I have no clue how to do that. And people are more than willing to help you, especially those who are close to you. So seek them out and help them. So with that, I'm going to call it. I could talk a lot more about superpowers, but one thing that I really wanted to say was that the big thing is that this is a journey. There's no one-stop answer to finding who you are in the game development space. But if you really focus on finding your passion, if you focus on being who you are, if you focus on leaning into your gifts, if you focus on, being a hard worker and getting that mentorship, you will find the path to finding your space, your place in game development a lot faster. I know it's like, oh, he didn't teach me anything about how to use Unity. He didn't teach me anything about this and that, because those things I could teach you, but you could, but they're not going to be the differentiator to get you to where you want to be in your career. It's really going to be these kind of principles that really guide you forward in your game development career, that are more holistic and meaningful. So I just want to say thank y'all for having me. I really appreciate it. As you can see, don't forget to take the survey. Mary Elizabeth just dropped the survey into the chat, so please click on that. Please leave your thoughts and feedback. And please also, this is recorded, so you can check it out later. So now what I'll do is I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Um, if you have any questions about the game development industry, how I got here, things that you should focus on, maybe a little bit more deeper or more specific, anything that you have. So I see one question here. You mentioned noting down things that matter to us. What sort of attributes do those things have? I figure there are more than just excitement, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so let me just make sure I understand the question. What sort of attributes do these things have? So the things that matter to us. So one thing that I have found over time is that those things will change. For example, like just think of don't get too focused on if they have all the attributes. I would say write down everything. Like if you like music, if you like dancing, if you like food, if you like movies, if you like Shia LaBeouf. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But like, note down anything that you think that might matter to you. Because if you think it matters to you, it probably matters to you to some degree, right? What I did, and I'll share my screen again, but when I was making my list of things that kind of helped me, here we go. I'll share my screen again. They kind of helped me to figure out things in my career, if you look, it's kind of a mix of weird things. There's my radio voice. People have told me I have a radio voice. I don't know if that's true, but if somebody says it, I just note it and I go, okay, cool. I guess that's true. um, 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 hosting, meaning hosting events, mentoring. I've done a lot of mentoring. My creativity. I wrote down anime. That doesn't seem like I was like, I've never made an anime in my life, but I love anime. And those things, as I started to kind of focus and, dance, audio editing, it helped me to kind of synergize more and more of what mattered to me. As you can see, eventually, if you look kind of in the middle right side, you'll see that a lot of gaming commentary, written commentary, anime writing, MMA commentary, like those started to give me the same thing. Like, oh, I like talking. I like hosting things, and I like engaging with people in some level. And Thomas Blake just shared something in the chat, which is think2perform.com/values. Said that this was a good exercise for that kind of thing. So I encourage you. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing that. I will say that don't limit yourself on the things that might excite you. You never know. You might find some hidden you know, talent or attribute that, oh, wow, this whole time, all these things that I've been enjoying actually kind of narrow down to one other thing. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, no problem, Sebastian. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? Edna, are there any roles, jobs in the gaming industry that are related or intersect with mental health? So this is a really, Edna, that's a great question. So I was just in San Diego, and I was at an event called Hack XR, and it was basically a XR event, mixed reality, AR, VR, all those things. And it was San Diego students, University, California, San Diego students making games using XR. What was really cool was that this was in conjunction with the Arthur C. Clarke uh, Center that is located in San Diego at UCSD. And the whole hackathon was about mental health or mental wellness. And something that's happening, like kind of, I wouldn't say behind the scenes because you can find it, is that there is a interest in creating tools, particularly XR tools that focus on mental health. And hospitals are already using some of these tools. So, for example, one thing that was shared with me is that people are using, Oculus or the Vive or what have you in hospitals with burn victims to help them to deal with, pain. And so they're hoping that those ideas can transfer over to mental health. So helping people either putting, so imagine you're a person who deals with social anxiety. And I'm a person who does deal with social anxiety. And being in rooms with a lot of people kind of like ooh, make you feel weird. One thing that they're experimenting with is how about we do a little bit of immersion therapy using VR and XR and things like that. So I put you in a room with one person, and then I turned the little knob up, and now it's 10 people and 20 people, 100. So as far as roles go, I think that is a lot of it is in the early stages. I know that there are students. I've seen some students who've been working with, I guess you could say, doing internships and different things like that with hospitals and working on some type of smaller, more focused mental health things. I think we'll see more of it in the future, especially with the adoption of headsets and with VR getting cheaper as wholesale for people. Thank you. That's so interesting. I've learned about an idea of telehealth through VR, and the idea of exposure therapy to help with trauma and PTSD is very interesting. Yeah, it's really, really cool. The burn victim one where and I didn't describe it, but essentially you put on a VR headset and then you're in say like an igloo or in snow, and as they change the bandages on your wound, which is very painful, and they're doing different things, they found that that actually it helps with pain reduction. So I think there's some really cool things that are coming. I think XR is something if you're not familiar with, um, check it out. Check it out. Even if you don't want to work in XR or VR, I think that similar to AI, it's the type of thing that having some knowledge is going to be important in the long term, especially for those working in the tech space and game development specifically. No, thank you, Edna. Any other questions? Great. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. I hope this was hopefully a helpful, informative. If you have any questions, and oh, there's a game category called Serious Games. Yes, Games. Super cool. GDC has a lot of GDC, sorry, the Game Developers Conference. There's a whole section on serious games. If you're ever interested in looking up that kind of content, check out GDC Vault, and there's a lot of cool topics. But anywho, thank you all for coming and being a part of this. If you want to, connect with me, you can reach me on LinkedIn um, and connect with me. Feel free to message me at any time. I'm always down to help and support anybody in their career journey. I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat just in case you want to connect. Um, but honestly, if you ever need anything, any questions about your career, just even if you just need some help finding a mentor of, I'll try my best. Hey, please feel free to reach out to me at any time.